Many photographers will tell you to master the manual mode and to use the manual setting whenever you capture any photo using your mirrorless or DSLR camera. I'm telling you definitively to not use the manual mode. Yes, you heard that right, and while yes, it is important to get your hands dirty and learn how the fundamentals of your camera works, but when it comes to nailing your exposure and making your life so much easier on your portrait shoots, I would actually recommend to not use the manual mode. Because I'm telling you, there is a much better way. And no, I'm not suggesting that you use the fully automatic function either. Instead, what I'd recommend you do is switch over to the AP mode or aperture priority setting. And the reason being is because I believe that it is the single best setting for beginners if they want to avoid the complexity and stress of using the manual mode setting, as well as for intermediate and advanced photographers who wish to save a ton of time during photo shoots, whilst eliminating the inconvenience of having to constantly keep adjusting the camera settings between each photo captured. So how does the AP mode work exactly? Well, the beauty of this setting is that all you need to do is set a specific aperture value in order to determine how blurry or detailed you wish the background to be, which I typically lock in at around f1.4 to f2, and then your camera will magically take care of the rest. Yup, it is that easy. Simply lock in the aperture to a value of your liking and then allow your camera to automatically select the shutter speed for you so as to ensure that your photo is properly exposed. Then, my friend, all you need to do is point and shoot and you're done. Well, not so fast. You see, you're still missing a small trick or hack when it comes to nailing the exposure using the AP mode setting. If you truly wish to take advantage of what the aperture priority setting has to offer, then I'd recommend you use the large flexible focus mode when using a Sony camera, or the large field zone AF mode on a Canon camera for the equivalent feature. And then to simply position the large focus area over where you'd like your subject's face to be in the frame prior to taking your shot. Usually I like to keep this locked in at the topmost horizontal line of the rule of thirds in order to create a more flattering portrait composition. But feel free to adjust this area to whichever position makes the most sense depending on the type of composition that you're seeking to capture. Now, the reason why the large flexible focus works so well when combined with the aperture priority mode is because of how it provides your camera with a much more targeted and specific area, that is your model's face, from which to determine the appropriate exposure and therefore shutter speed of your image, creating a much smaller margin for error and significantly increasing the accuracy of the automatic exposure selection. This will also help to ensure that your model's face specifically is properly exposed, which is essential for any portrait image. Situations where this can be especially helpful is in high contrast scenes such as by a window in a dark room, or in a natural backlighting setup where you have a lot of conflicting and contrasting luminosity values in the frame. I'm telling you guys, the amount of stress this feature combo has eliminated from my life, you would not believe. Okay, so you're using the aperture priority mode and large flexible focus to nail your photo's exposure, but what if you want a little more creative freedom or precise control when it comes to adjusting the exposure of your photo? Maybe you want to slightly underexpose your image to preserve the detail in the highlights. Maybe you want to create more moody, dramatic, and low-key images. Perhaps you're dealing with a unique and complex lighting situation that requires manual intervention. Or maybe you're just a perfectionist like me and you want just a little bit extra precise control when it comes to determining the exposure of your images. Whatever your reason may be, this now presents us with a new problem. Since the AP mode automatically selects the shutter speed and therefore the exposure of your image, then how are you supposed to adjust the exposure in a more creative and precise way? Well, my friend, that's where the exposure compensation dial comes in. And this is where you can find it on Canon cameras. Whichever camera you use, in most cases, it works in the same way. So how does this feature work exactly? Well, it's actually pretty simple and intuitive. All you need to do is switch over to the aperture priority setting and then come on over to the exposure compensation dial, and then to adjust it in the positive direction to increase the brightness or exposure of your image, or shift it into the negative direction so as to decrease the brightness or create a slightly underexposed image. Just remember that 0 is the baseline, and this is the value to choose if you want your camera to select a perfect and balanced exposure. at least according to the capability of your camera. And guys, it really is as simple as that. Nothing too fancy or complicated, just a seriously useful tool if you're looking to fine-tune your camera's automatic exposure selection, or if you want to get creative with the lighting or brightness of your photo. Now, here's the thing, guys. Posing, camera settings, and lighting, whilst undoubtedly helpful, will not be enough if your goal is to truly create masterful looking portrait images. If you really want your work to stand out and skyrocket to the next level, then I'd highly recommend you watch the following video on screen if you want to level up your portrait editing and color grading using Photoshop. I'll see you inside.